right, I think it's time. Whoever arrived. Welcome, everyone. So as you can see on the screen, this is a working session. There is not going to be slides in this session. So if you came here to get to know all the things about how all these initiatives are going to happen, then my answer is we don't know. So that's why we are here. So there's not really much yet to tell you in terms of content. There may actually be some stuff to tell you in terms of content. There's a session on automated updates. There's several sessions on Olivero, and they were part of the initiative leads plenary earlier today. And there's a bunch of Drupal.org issues on Drupal 10 readiness. So there's definitely some stuff that we can talk about in terms of what we already have. But the goal for this session is to have a discussion. So I would invite people attending to come on over video and ask questions, propose ideas, and do all kinds of fun things. So I will monitor my moderation panel and the chat, try to take notes and everything at once. I made this screen like this because people will hop in and out of this session, and they may not have an idea of what we are doing here, so they will get to know what we are doing here. So we have these 5 components. Ideally, what I would like to do is to prioritize with you which one we are trying to talk about first. So let's do a little experiment and enter the letter of the new initiative or the initiative that you want to start discussing in chat. And it will fly by very fast, but I will try to see what people want to discuss here. All right, so we have 77 people on, but we had like 20 or so votes so far. And most of them circle around A and B with some distribution on the rest. I don't have a scientific way to aggregate your chat messages, so it needs to be whatever my brain can process in time. So that's what you got. So, all right, do we have people yet here from the Automated Updates Initiative? Lucas Heading was on the previous buff. In case they are here, they didn't yet said hi in the chat. And we could start with that, but if they're okay, Lucas is here. All right. So we can, Lucas, you want to jump in here? I can let you in.
Hi.
We can start about automated updates then. Hello. Lucas arrived. Hi. We are not hearing you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Helps when I turn the mute off. You'll have to give me context because I just literally joined and someone said my name and I said, what? Huh?
Yeah.
So, what's going on?
This is the working session that we are discussing the challenges and next steps for these initiatives. For the ones that have not been started, I guess the next step is where do we even start and how do we organize the work and who's interested in taking part. And for initiatives like automated updates that have a rich history, the question would be, what are your current challenges, focus areas, and then we can get more people on to discuss if they want to be involved.
I think the current challenges, we've got lots of great inspiration and some ideas. but a lot of these things are really hard problems that don't take 5 minutes or even half a day to throw up a patch, but can require a great deal of time and investment.
Okay. So you would need dedicated contributors, basically. That's your...
Well, or at least someone to sort of wrangle the cats, such that what limited time we have, we're spending it efficiently. Is that making sense? Like someone to, like a project manager. I was hoping someone would smile and nod, because I think that's going to be a common theme through all of these initiatives.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Good idea of what goals you're trying to achieve with as part of this initiative, or do you need help defining those as well?
I think we've kind of been, we've kind of got a lot of those goals. We've got a working session scheduled on Friday, and I went through this morning and documented them, and then closed that tab. But some of it is that we need to move what was in contrib, just open up a couple of metas or something and move code over to core, because we can take the PSA code, the PSAs, we can move over the readiness checks, and start just pulling that into core. We also need to work on an AB front end. David had some initial POC work from a couple of years, but it was kind of, I would think, like David Strauss's stuff is like higher than, above all of Drupal, and so that POC needs to be worked through. And then we've got something called Tough, which is a Python framework that's gone through the Linux Foundation and some of their oversight committees. And it would require some tweaks to how we are implementing our current secure tokens and hashing of the payloads for our updates. And we're doing a sprint. Some of you guys will be hopefully in attendance in August to try to realize some work there. So I think that's 3 things, and I might have missed a couple.
That's great for goals. And then when we talk about the initiative team itself, it sounds like you've already got somewhat of a team formed. Yourself are on it. Would you call yourself like the lead developer, or like what would your role within the team be?
I'm the lead developer only because I had funding on the first phase, and there's like 80 hours left of that work, just sort of left over. So 2 weeks and then I'm out of work, and got to pay the electric bill still. So and no one stepped forward, so obviously I'll try to stick around, but and then David Strauss and others have sort of stepped forward with this interest in Tough, but there's not a strong lead right now.
Okay. So we're lacking like an initiative lead, or at least one with funded time to work on this initiative is what I'm hearing. We're lacking project management help to help kind of wrangle the issues and the volunteers who want to see this happen and putting them in a good place. It sounds like we have your experience as the lead developer of the first phase of this, but we're gonna have to scale way back on our expectations and around your availability very soon. And we have David Strauss as kind of in a more of an architect position, leading some of this broader stuff.
From the perspective of Tough.
Tough, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And Tough is just going to sort of replace some of the infrastructure around what's called CSIG, the client signature that we're attaching to the tar balls.
Yeah.
And also we're that Tough stuff is not just a Drupal thing at that point. It's working with the Typo 3 community and the escapes me, tip of my tongue. What's the other? Joomla community.
So as far as the resources, at Acquia, me and Jess and Alex Bronstein are going to be able to put some time in starting now, or I guess we're already putting time in, and looking to help to move like the site readiness stuff into core would be sort of the first stuff, looking at the composer, which I don't think was covered in the section before. Lucas had asked if
Yeah, it was there. It was
Okay.
there.
So looking at the composerifying that, the making it work with composer sites too, which Lucas has started on too, but following up on that work.
The composer install or update of, let's just say, of core. We started some work on it, and then I followed a rabbit trail.
Yeah.
So we probably 80% of our work in the first phase was getting this signature infrastructure set up on Drupal.org.
Yep.
And if we went with a 100% pure composer update, we would have to throw that all away, which seems very, very sad.
Well, not for Drupal 7. Or for the contrib for Drupal 7.
It'd be very sad for Drupal 8 that we wouldn't be able to use any of this client, cryptography stuff if you went with pure composer. So my rabbit trail was to work with Composer 2 project, and we actually got some changes into Composer 2 that now allow us to intercept those downloads.
Yep.
And so we can run the SHA sums and the comparisons. So then the next phase would be actually now going back and trying to do like the composer update using PHP libraries. Not calling the FAR file directly, but calling composer's internal API to initiate an update. The benefit to all of what I just said, though, is when you look at the performance stats for Composer 2, we're not going to be seeing all that much memory utilization in all likelihood. So it's a perfect scenario for folks that want to use Composer, because they're going to have to use Composer 2 to get the security, and Composer 2 will also help them reduce their memory footprint. So good things on all fronts. And that's where we left it.
Yep.
Okay. So I think Benji had a great question in chat. How many people in this session consider themselves to be PMs? And in the video chat or in the chat, that's the question. I think we are not considering ourselves to be PMs. I'm happy to mentor people to get on in terms of how to navigate the core process. That's the value I can add. So I'm happy to help people on board as a project manager for automated updates or any of the other initiatives. And basically all of them need project managers. So
I would say that all good lead devs are also likely good project managers.
Yeah, a lot of times people who would prefer.
But they hate to do it and they don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in helping shuttle a lot of the stuff into core. Maintainer of settings tray and layout builder, and help to get those into core. So, I mean, I'm definitely would be interested in other people helping with management. I think we could always use more help there. But while we're waiting,
if I could share a screen just for a second. They both get shared, and then you have to click on the other one. Anyway, this one's mine. What we're effectively doing right now is we're spinning up a whole bunch of new initiatives. And there's a section on Drupal.org called the Strategic Initiatives page. We list all the ones. This page needs to be updated now. But we list all the ones that are currently in process. Each one of them gets like this page, and the page has like, here's a summary of what this is going to look like when it's all done. Here is a bullet point list of what this is going to do. Here are the specific priorities that we're working on. Here's who we are and what role we're filling on the team. Here's where to communicate with us. Here's how to get involved. And we want to build a page like this for each of these initiatives because it helps out, people not in the core development community understand what they're going to get when they're done with this initiative. It helps the people who are interested find out exactly what to expect by, the time this is quote unquote done. It gives some actual faces to reach out to if you're interested in helping out. And it kind of goes like that. And so that's why I'm wasting time drilling in on these details, because if you could give us insight into what your ideal project team looks like, that is really helpful, because then we can go find people to fill those roles. And they're easier to fill those roles when we know and we can communicate what it is exactly they're going to be asked to do. So it kind of, the page format kind of goes top to down like that. It's like, explain what it is you're going to do. Here's specifically what that breaks down to, because then that makes it much easier for people who want to take part to have an understanding of what's expected of them and what their work is ultimately going to lead to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think I heard Ted say that you're willing to take on some kind of a coordinator position.
Yeah, our lead developer. I mean, I'll be hopefully full time for the next few months or the rest of the year.
I have half time too, so.
Awesome.
Okay, any final thoughts on this before we move on to the next one, although we haven't solved some of the problems?
Come to the Friday session if you're available.
Also, we have a session diving in that I think is going to be a great intro to understanding the initiative. So if it's something that you can see yourself contributing to, the session would be a great way to get oriented before this one.
Yeah.
I think this also should be, I feel like this work, maybe like people who are consider themselves pretty good developers, but not that familiar with Drupal. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you don't, I mean, obviously we'll need people who know Drupal, but we'll also need people who know Composer really well. And I feel like the AB front loader stuff is something we haven't done in Drupal. So it's not like you have to know an existing system really well. We're like sort of proposing a new system. So,
and we've discussed making that both the signing and the front loader components that are not a part of Drupal, that are maintained with other teams, so that these both potentially might be available to other projects and other PHP projects in the community, which Google is also very interested in us doing, by the way.
Okay. So Lucas in chat also says that if we have PM, then they could start being very useful for 2 to 4 hours a week, which is a good estimate for anyone who's looking at possibly recruiting PMs to help. I think it's a good estimate to get started on stuff. We can help mentor them. I can help mentor them to make it very concrete and actionable. It's not the mess but me personally. I can help mentor them. Okay, let's move to JS menu component then. That's a whole new initiative. We don't have a team. We don't have leaders. We have some vision defined by Dries. So how do we go about that?
So I think we've got some community building around the initiative so far over in Slack. I think people are also offering stuff. John, you shared that you've been working on something very similar to what was proposed, I think. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that, or if we should just focus more on the process of making an initiative that's new like this official.
Yeah, process would be good. Like Gabriel was just saying, we've done a couple different iterations of a menu component. Some of you may know that I've done menu block module. Like this is right up my alley of like we've been doing a lot of React stuff in Mesa Labs and basically recreated something similar to that in React. But the more important, from my understanding, is I haven't been following the admin, the previous initiatives that needed this, right? So I don't know what their criteria is for wanting to get this in. I just know what our criteria was for when we built this thing. So I think that can be part of the initial. Once we have like leadership, and like that would need to be something that needs to be understood better.
Learned from the people who are involved, like Sally and Larry to some extent, etc.
What is the pitch initiative? What is the elevator pitch? I missed it so far.
I think the elevator pitch is we want to put a stake in the ground where Drupal provides official React, Vue, Foo components built with JavaScript, and that process should get the ball rolling on further work from the Drupal community in that space. And ideally, those components should make the decoupled experience, whether you're a site builder, an end user, or a front-end developer who maybe doesn't know Drupal or PHP, have a better development experience with Drupal.
Thanks.
I think that another really important thing for this initiative is that we need to have release management, framework management, and security stakeholders involved from the beginning. There's a lot of implications that this changes, a lot of expectations we have, both because of how the current JavaScript ecosystem's dependency management works, and the expectations we have around maintainership. There's a lot of governance stuff, so I think that it's important to start early in the initiative by having conversations about those kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. How do we tread water in the JavaScript pool? we know PHP really well. We know our dependencies like Symfony, but Node is a different beast. Code is distributed very differently, right? Via npm.
Using a package manager for our production dependencies and cores, which has, is that a problem? And Lowry has told me before that would be a lot of work to change.
Yeah. So Gabor, Angie, maybe you could tell us how do we go about formalizing a new initiative if people are on board? I think it sounds like people are, but we probably want to give them opportunity to shoot holes in the elevator pitch.
That's actually one of the things I'm most interested in. I was hoping that we would hear a lot of that, and I think we have started to. Is feedback from the Dries note, like, is this a good way to start? Because Dries, had the idea, but I think that maybe this is a place where maybe the ideation process could help us if we really invest some time in promoting the idea and trying to get community feedback on a time-boxed discussion on whether there's a better direction we should go.
I feel like, I know historically JavaScript has always been hard for us because we're PHP developers, but I think Dries in his slides even kind of showed that in general nowadays, in the last couple of years, there's a lot more JavaScript developers entering the space, just in general. And I feel like I've seen in the last couple of years a bigger split between front end and back end Drupal devs, to where front ends are using components and design systems and all of that now. And I think a lot of those people maybe have historically not contributed back to the Drupal project because they think of it as Drupal as PHP, and they work in agencies and they do custom themes and they do custom JavaScript that way. So, I know we've got several front end devs in my organization that I think would be happy to contribute back to Drupal if we could find a way for them to do it with their skill set, which might not be PHP heavy, but would definitely be JavaScript and component and React and Vue heavy. it's really a trick of, how do we find those people that are already working on front end Drupal stuff and get them to contribute back if they haven't been.
Yeah, I think that's I put in blank text to stake in the ground because I'm an old hat backend developer. But so that's why we want to put a stake in the ground to show that we want to go here, and I think it's also important to set a goal that is accomplishable. That's why on the surface, it doesn't sound very inspiring that you have a JavaScript menu component. Okay, well, whatever. But it's an achievable step that we can then build on. I think that's the idea, to show that we are committed to this and we can ship something much faster than if we would have boil the ocean and redo everything.
Oh, sorry. I think I was talking over Angie. So maybe it was Echo. Yeah, I was going to say that since the actual technical goal, whatever it is self-contained, we might also find out as a result of doing that, oh, maybe this isn't the right way. Maybe we should go a different direction. And especially if it's something we can complete in a short amount of time, we'll get those answers sooner.
Okay, that goes on my end. Hold on.
No, I think it's someone else. If everyone else could just mute when they're not talking. I think it was Anne.
I tried to unmute because I was going to talk, but then John talked at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that I actually think a menu component is pretty good component to start with. It's not an easy component to write. We've done it a few times in Amazing Labs, and so there's some hidden sort of complexity. You think oh, it should be straightforward, but the way that we render menus to do all these different things inside React application, to be able to do a lot of different things, and that makes the code not straightforward. And it like Dries was saying, it's going to require us to think about authentication and who has access to those menu items, even if the menu, even if the way I envision the code, it's more atomic than it would just be about rendering the menu items, but we would still need to think about how do we do the authentication and authorization, right? Because that stuff has to be worked out so that the menu component itself can render what it's been given, right? So it touches on a lot of things that are not super easy, but would be super helpful for developers that want to oh, great, we've got this stuff already handled. Right? I would love to hear other people's ideas of different things, but it made a lot of sense to me.
Okay, so I think Jess's point about doing an exploration of exploring this idea a bit more and then come back with whether that made sense, I think sounds reasonable.
I asked an earlier question about what's the process for becoming an official initiative, so I was going to just show that real quick.
Do it.
So there's this queue called the Drupal Core Ideas queue at drupal.org/project/ideas. We have this helpful flowchart that Yoroi himself made, as far as I understand. And this is only for kind of bigger initiatives. You don't have to do this for, I want to fix a typo somewhere or whatever. But the idea is you post an idea to the ideas queue. Everyone says, yay, it's a great idea. So then you build a prototype and you do a plan and you kind of iterate on this. And once the initiative is approved, then you go into the actual core queue and you start building and happily ever after and stuff like that, which is very waterfall. I'm not saying it's a great necessarily way to do it, but it is a process that we have. So we have this ideas queue. In here, you can find all kinds of crazy ideas that people have. Some have a billion comments, some that don't. But just like any other issue in any issue queue, you can have discussions on these, edit the issue summary, which is the main template, and eventually get the thing up to RTBC. And once it gets to RTBC or reviewed and tested by the community, then the product managers are able to approve it. We have an initiative template here, which basically has some background. Why are we doing this? What's the problem we're trying to solve? What is the solution that we want to do? Here's where to find the process. A roadmap. We don't need this to be like as detailed as every single detail of every roadmap, but the idea of sketching out what it is that you want to accomplish. Talk to us about what's not in scope. That's going to be really important for this initiative, so it doesn't try to take on the whole world. Any related work, existing core features, and so on. You don't necessarily have to fill out this whole thing, but it's really helpful because if you can answer these questions, you get out in front of a lot of things that are going to hurt you later on if you don't. So for example, one of the things that we talk about is what team, what resources do you have? What sign-offs are you going to need in order to do your thing? Like Jess mentioned, release management, security sign-offs. We need some plan around how these components are going to be maintained, how they're going to jive or not with the Drupal, release process, that kind of thing. So, so that would be my recommendation is as you're doing this discovery work, and you're trying to figure out, whether or not the proposal as is good, or if it needs to be modified or whatever, collaborate together on one of these issue summary template kind of things, and go forth and fill out the blanks. And then that gives you a stake in the ground to be able to have a wider conversation with the community to find out details you're missing, maybe other things we want to try to plot later in the roadmap, that kind of thing. And then through that process of kind of deliberation, get it up to RTBC, and then it would be escalated to one of the product managers, which is myself, Roy, Gabor, or Dries, and we would be able to basically say, yeah, this looks great.
There's also, I'll add to this, there's two kinds of initiatives. There's the strategic initiatives, which Dries, in consultation with community stakeholders, has said, these things are most important for the health and future of Drupal right now. But then there are also community initiatives, which are just things that people in the community have collaborated around and are working on. So an example of this during the Drupal 8 cycle was we had a dependency on Simple Task when we shipped Drupal 8.0, and a group of contributors who really cared about fixing our testing worked together to switch and convert Drupal's test to PHP unit. That wasn't an official strategic initiative. It was extremely beneficial in the long run, and it makes made everything easier for. So that went through something like the process Angie suggested, but it's not, it doesn't need like Dries' official approval for people to work on things that they're interested in. The community, it's always, if you are interested in something, give it a shot and try. And if it turns out through this ideation process, we're like, whoa, this is important, then we can, help you promote it and get more involvement.
Just in general, what I find really refreshing is, and I'm sure it's by necessity, but that this initiative chooses to find the smallest sliver of proof of concept and just the smallest thing that we can get to actually surface. And I mean, that's unique, and that's something to be guarded. Because this will have eyes on it, and people are already asking why not Angular. We need to get that first thing. Whatever, I don't know. It's I think proofs of concepts are already in place, right? From what I hear John saying, well, I've written a couple. In that sense, we need to get a proof of core viable concept or whatever. But yeah. Before we can even ask a project manager to manage this, we need to clearly guard and sign off on that smallest possible scope to learn what we need to learn.
Who's the one to RTBC the ideas issue queues?
The ones proposing the idea, no, the ones proposing the idea when they think that it's ready for feedback from the product manager.
Gotcha.
Review. When you think that you completed these, like, who's my team, which kind of sign-offs I think this will need, one is my rough roadmap, that kind of thing. So So you don't need, I mean, the initiative doesn't need external stakeholders necessarily to plan it out, but then your external stakeholders will come in and rip it to pieces.
It's advisable peer review before you actually see it.
Yep.
Say Jess, it was a little.
Oh, sorry. I was saying Gabor was saying it's not a requirement to have, sign-offs and external reviews before you get the plan to RTBC, but it's a good idea. If you're like working on something with one other person, it can help flesh out your plan to get feedback from someone outside first. So it's a good idea, even if not required.
All right, so we spent 35 minutes on these two, and we have 10 more minutes left for one of the three remaining, probably. We're not gonna have more time to dive into more. So I would call for a vote again. CDRE in the chat. The polls only.
So which letter is what? Which is Drupal 10?
On the screen that I am sharing.
Oh, it's very small.
CDRE.
E.
Okay.
It kind of all looks like everything.
Yeah, Drupal 10 by far. Okay, Drupal 10. Let's talk about Drupal 10.
Gabor, do you want me to?
Yes, do it.
So what are the questions? I missed the first 4 minutes because it's easy to get disrupted at home. So what were the questions to answer? I can't read your slides even.
I think there were questions. I think.
Okay. Yeah. So as you heard in the Dries note, we have until Drupal 9.3 Alpha 1 at the very, very latest to add core any new functionality that needs to be in Drupal 10, and that includes required functionality. So for example, in order to update from CK Editor 4 to CK Editor 5, we determined the best way to do that would be to add an experimental module to Drupal 9 core that implements CK Editor 5 because there's such a big BC break between the two, and then work on that, refine it, get feedback, and make it a stable module so that then in Drupal 10 we could, or in preparation for Drupal 10, we could deprecate CK Editor 4 and then make CK Editor 5 the official core module. And there's lots of things like that for basically anything we want to add to core for this magical continuous upgrade path that makes everything so easy. It's important to earlier in the process. So 9.3 is like a year and 3 months from now is the alpha deadline for it. So we need to get started now. And I'll kind of run down what I think the top 5 things are that are at risk that need work right now, that are hard requirements. So, and that we can start now easily. So one of the biggest risks is related to, we're trying to go not only to Symfony 5, but to Symfony 6 in order to get out of this trap of having to do a major release every 2 years. And that's going to require, first of all, that requires us to be Symfony 5 compatible, which we almost are. We have like one critical issue left, which is very exciting. But then after, even once Drupal 9 is compatible with Symfony 5, we have to keep up with all of the deprecations in Symfony 5 in order to adopt Symfony 6. And we might have, in order to expose those deprecations to Drupal 9 users so they can have a continuous upgrade path, we might have to do some kind of ugly stuff in order to surface those deprecations, or at least we need to come up with a process for it. So that's, I'm sort of going back end to front end. That's one important area. Another important thing for both Drupal 8 and Drupal 8 through Drupal 10 is our PHP 8 compatibility. The sooner that we are fully compatible with PHP 8, the sooner that we can sort of push our upstream components to make PHP 8 compatible versions available, the better off we will be, because PHP 8 is going to, Drupal 10 will require at least PHP 8. And obviously we want our other releases to be compatible with that as well, starting ideally, if we could, with the release of 9.1. So there's a great meta issue right now that has lots of bugs in core that need fixing for PHP 8. That's a great place to get started. And it will also acquaint you with sort of like
I think we lost Jess here, but there's a meta issue for PHP 8. There's people been exploring running Drupal 9 with PHP 8, And there's some promising things there, but we need all of our dependencies, of course, to update. So that's it for PHP 8. And now we are getting catch on, maybe.
Did I just get? That was weird.
Oh, she's
Yeah,
back.
now you're back.
Where did I get dropped? Sorry.
We finished off PHP 8.
Okay, cool. That was sucky, especially when we have like 3 minutes. I thought the session ended or something. It was strange. So big thing number 3, CK editor, which I just mentioned. We might have a time box discussion about which editor is best for Drupal. I and Wim, who's the person who wrote the CK editor 4 integration, both feel that it might be, we're very short on time to go with a totally new solution. But that's a discussion we need to have like this month, is whether we go ahead with CK editor 5 or whether we want to pursue a different WYSIWYG for Drupal 10. It's going to take a long time. It requires a lot of work. It requires JavaScript knowledge. It requires Drupal knowledge, and it requires collaborating with upstream. The CK editor team in the past has worked really well with us, and they're willing to make fixes for things that are bugs in Drupal. So that's a great opportunity, and we would love anyone who's has both PHP and JavaScript knowledge to help us out with that. And then the fourth thing, we're also looking at jQuery 4 coming out probably sometime before the release of Drupal 10, which puts us at risk because, I don't know if anyone remembers Drupal 8.4 and how much it broke all your sites. But what we did in Drupal 8.4 is we had to do a major update of jQuery in a minor release, and we don't want to ever do that again. So jQuery 4 adds a lot of risk for us because we have all of these dependencies that depend on jQuery. Will they be compatible with jQuery 4 in time? There's mountains of code of jQuery code in core. And so one sort of like side initiative that it could be its own standalone thing, and I would love to see people sprinting on, is to convert existing jQuery in core, legacy jQuery from like 10 years ago, into native JavaScript. There's a lot of patterns that, even 10 years ago could have been done without jQuery, but as JavaScript has evolved as language, there's a lot of things that we can do that do not require jQuery. So again, JavaScript contributors, this is a place that's sort of easier to get involved. We're going to do some planning around, what's the most important, how do we go about removing jQuery in core, making issues for it, reviewing them, and so forth. But I think this is a really sprintable thing because it can be a matter of look through core of all of pattern X and just replace with pattern Y. And we started talking about what some of the most important things are for that. And then thing number 5, not a hard requirement, but I think is very important, is if there's anyone here who's a theme developer, you might have had the opportunity earlier to attend Lowry's session about the Starter Kit initiative. The Starter Kit is basically, it's a replacement for Classy. Classy, we wanted to deprecate Classy in Drupal 9, but we're not able to because we didn't have a replacement for it yet, and Classy would give us that replacement. This is sort of, it's not a hard security requirement for the release of Drupal 10, but in order for our themes to be maintainable in the long term, and in order to not have to have stable 8 in core for the next 10 years, we need that replacement. So theme developers, if you're interested, talk to Lowry, please. And go to BOF tomorrow, apparently. All right, I think I'm done. Those are the most important things right now. We have a giant roadmap of stuff that has rough details, and we can put the link in anywhere's interested if you go to. Or if you just search Drupal.org for June 2022, release Drupal 10 in June 2022, you'll get the issue that way. That's how I find it usually.
So Jess and Nat too, since you're here, on the Symfony 6, so when Drupal 10 comes out, Symfony would be on 6.1, I think would be the most recent release, which is only going to have 9 months of support.
Yep. So there's a solution to that. We negotiated extra security coverage with the Symfony team. So 2 of the Drupal core framework managers who are on the security team are also on Symfony's security team. Mm-hmm. And when there is a security issue for 6.0 or 6.1, then we will work with Symfony to create a backport release for it for our needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. So we'd release 10.0 on 6.1, and then we'd release 10.1 on 6.2, and
Yep.
et cetera, till we get up to 6.4.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And we looked back at our previous releases, and there's like maybe 1 or 2 in the history of Drupal 8 where we might have been in that window. Notably, 2018-05, we could not. Symfony 4.3 was out of security coverage, and so we were kind of stuck there in order to create a backport for 8.5s. But we've addressed that now. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt and Benji.
And with that, our official time is up, but we can continue discussing whoever is still available until we get kicked out.
Anyone else have any questions about Drupal 10 in general? Let me look at the chat. Lots of excitement about jQuery out. I hope to see you all in. Did we even make, Gabor, have we made a Drupal 10 table?
No.
We should.
No, I was hoping there was hopefully going to be like a Symfony table or something, but there may be too specific. So I can definitely make a Drupal 10 table. Yes.
We can. You know.
It's better marketing, right?
Yep.
For starters.
Or you could make the title Drupal 10 and kill jQuery.
So I have a question about the CK editor.
Yeah.
So what is the next step on the CK editor issue? Because I feel like we need a decision on the, like, are we going to continue with CK editor or go with something else?
I think that I also tried to bring this up in the last committer meeting, but unfortunately it was at a time when neither product managers were there. I think that we need to have a, first of all, I think we need to have a discussion with Dries, with Angie, with Wim, myself, Lowry, about whether or not we do want to even consider another editor. And then if we do want to consider a different editor, I think then we need like product management to have like a time box window for feedback, and it needs to go through the product review process, because this is a really important content editor facing feature. It's a big part of Drupal's experience. So like we already know that CK Editor 4 passed our requirements, and the question is, do all of these editors meet our product and release management concerns, along with all of the technical things that we'd be concerned about. So like, you know, question 1 is, do we even consider it? Because people can all still create, if they want to create a Gutenberg model, go do it. You know, we have contrib. So I'm torn on that, but I think it's ultimately, you know, a product decision whether we make the consideration, and then we need a product process for picking a different editor if we're going to go that way. CK Editor has, on the other hand, has a plan written out based on CK Editor as of a year ago. There will probably be additional things that we discover once we actually start to do it.
Just I can't speak to the other product managers. How I'm going to think about that is the impact that it has on content authors versus the effort that it's going to take to replace it. And replacing it means we need it to pass the accessibility gate. We need it to pass the usability gate. Remember that when we replace an editor, all of the documentation, training video needs to be done. So if we're going to switch to a different editor, it's got to be very compelling from my point of view. I know CK Editor 5 supports like collaborative editing and stuff like that. That's cool. Like some kind of really neat carrot we get with the change of an editor could possibly sway it, but like it would need to be very compelling, and there need to be a solid plan behind how exactly we're going to do it, because we have less than 2 years to get it done.
We have it's basically a year, and we need the replacement to be in core, ideally like in 9.2. If we don't have a module that's beta or stable in 9.2, we're in a really bad spot. So we have
to encourage us in general, any of these kind of things. If you have a great idea and you want it to happen for core, get it happening in contrib first, because several of our most successful initiatives, JSON API, you know, all these different ones have done that path. So if you really like the Smoopy Boopy editor, go make a Smoopy Boopy module, get it working really well, then you can showcase, hey, awesome it is. That is a much easier, cleaner path to core than, hey, I found this cool JavaScript library in GitHub. Let's add that to core. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm somewhat concerned for that though. With the may end up like the theme contest when we had the theme contest, and there was like 3 teams working on the theme, and then we only got 1. So that's a problem because based on the time limitation that we have, I don't think we can send multiple teams to build their editors, and then only 1 gets done unless they are totally happy with having a contrib that may or may not end up anywhere.
I think you want a firm statement from product management that either, yes, we're considering other editors at this time, or no, we are definitely not considering other editors at this time first, and then move from there. Is that right?
Yeah, I also think that the documentation and the video stuff needs to happen either way, because CKEditor 5 is quite different from CKEditor 4 in terms of what it offers, how it integrates. The developer experience is totally different. The contrib modules will need to be rewritten. They will decide on how new UIs that want to integrate with CKEditor because they need to be rewritten anyway. So it's gonna escalate either way.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess, once again, I just ask people, keep the content authors in mind. These are the poor victims of Drupal who didn't have any choice over what CMS they have to use every day. They're the people who have to use this. So that's the lens through which, when we're evaluating which solution to go with, that's the lens we need to be looking at.
I saw Dries in the chat, actually. Dries, do you have thoughts and opinions on this? Is he still here?
Yeah, Dries was listening. I mean, he was listening in. I was in the chat all along. I did not come on video, though. Maybe typing or not, we don't know.
Another question in the chat. So is it practical to support CKEditor 4 and contrib? Is a question from Ruth. It's a great question. I've thought about this as well. What I think that we would do is I think that we would move the CKEditor 4 module into contrib, but it would not have security coverage because what's their faces? The CKEditor team is going to stop providing security coverage for it at the end of 2023. We negotiated that date with them. Actually, that's another thing that's really in CKEditor's favor, is that we have good relationships with them, and they already extended, for Drupal 9, they extended CKEditor 4's end of life from the beginning of 2022 to the end of 2020. Wait, beginning of whatever year that is, 2020, the one where Drupal 9's end of life. It's a great question, and so it would have security, like the module would have security cover, because Drupal 9, remember, is supported at the same time. Drupal 10 is released, and Drupal 9.4 is released at the same time, and has another 18 months of support after that. So see, we would be maybe providing coordinated security releases for contrib module up until the end of 2023, and at that point, that module would either go no security coverage or unsupported. Let's see, another question or another thing from the chat. Mike says the type hinting in Symfony 5 and 6 is going to be another pain point. Yes, I agree. We have already had to do horrible things for that related to the PHP unit, and we might have to do horrible things for that for a lot more of core. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, Scott, I agree that legacy support for CKEditor 4 and edit in place changes. Yes, they're very different, which is why we're writing a different module. If I understand the statement. I know that we're hanging out in our overtime here. Does anyone else have questions about Drupal 10? Excited about? I love that we're going straight into this after Drupal 9, because it means we already have a lot of people who know what it's like to deliver a major release under a new process, and so are excited and have knowledge. I like that. It kind of sucks from a product standpoint, because we can't work on as many user-facing improvements, but I do like continuing our momentum. Yeah, and she's making faces. I'm excited too. Let's make a Drupal 10 group, Gabor, and then we'll invite people to it on the open social.
Yeah, I was looking at whether I can create it, but I'm locked out of that site now, but I will create it as soon as I can, yeah.
Yay, thanks.
I have a question on the easy out of the box, if we are done with Drupal 10 readiness.
Ooh, I would love to talk about that too, yes.
Yeah.
We haven't been kicked off yet.
If people can hang on, we can talk a bit
Let me
about
see
that.
if there's anything else I'm supposed. There's nothing else that I'm supposed to be at for a couple hours. So I think
Oh,
if people want to leave, that's fine too. But what's the question?
So I'm working on the Claro admin team, and it's now bundled into the Easy Out of the Box initiative. And I'm wondering, like, what does it mean?
Isn't that beautiful? Aren't you beautiful out of the box? Like there was easy out of the box and beautiful out of the box, and you're beautiful out of the box.
No, I don't. I think there's this new front end team, and there's Easy Out of the Box, and Claro is part of the Easy Out of the Box
Okay,
initiative.
that's fine. It went back. I wasn't sure.
yeah, Laurie's not even in the box, so even a tent.
But Claro is in the box. They're all in the box, which is the point. So yeah, I guess I would love it if we could find an initiative lead for this initiative. This initiative lead would have with their team an interesting responsibility of going to the contributors to 3 different experimental modules and themes from at least 3 from the Drupal 8 cycle, going to all of their roadmaps and all of their blockers to standard and gathering information, and then prioritizing, working from there. So I think it's an exciting. I'm very excited about the idea of it because it encourages us to think holistically and prioritize across multiple features. But it does, it's going to be fun. It's the things that I actually care about the most. Unfortunately, I'm already involved with 2 other initiatives, so I can't put my hat in the ring for it.
Just if you had to describe like the ideal personality or skill set or whatever for an initiative lead for this, what would it be? Because like I think a lot of people who don't have all the background may be like, I don't know, just add it to standard profile, you're done. You know what I mean? And that's not what this is. So could you maybe talk a little bit about what?
I think it's contributors that we would need. Accessibility is a huge set of blockers and considerations for all 3 of at least of the things that are already included. So having someone as part of the initiative team who really could focus on and triage accessibility issues and work with the accessibility team would be very important, I think. I think that it should probably be someone who's already comfortable, really comfortable with the issue queue, while there's other opportunities where a project manager who's not that familiar with the issue queues could get ramped up. This is one where you'd have to be able to dig into history in the core queue, and so it would be good to have from someone who's used to working in core and has maybe even contributed in one of these initiatives in the past, because then they could just say, okay, I worked a little on layout builder, I worked a little on media. One of those things is I can apply this then to sort of take these 3 initiatives and make them one. Yeah, someone who cares about the initiative is about the experience of Drupal, right? It's about UX. And so I think it'll be exciting to people who care about the day-to-day use of Drupal, how it looks, how it feels.
If any of the Umami people are even interested in this, but the people who are involved in the Umami initiative, I feel they really had that skill set in spades, where it's take a really holistic look at the beginner experience and really making that excellent. And I think we need that same attention to detail.
I mean, we could reach out to Umami contributors and say, hey, we're doing this now. Are you interested? Because Umami is fantastic, and we want to apply some of the same genius to core, except with no content.
And is what is needed,
default content could be under the umbrella of this initiative, because that's something that gets requested a lot too. But I think it's from a strategic. John, what is that what is the? Is that meant to obscure your face?
These are my JavaScript glasses. I was going to say you mentioned the Umami. There's actually a Gatsby demo code that uses an Umami installation that renders the content using React and Gatsby. Right. I just thought of that. That's all I wanted to say. These are glasses my son built, actually. Just LED, hot to a pair of goggles.
I don't want to voluntold anyone to do anything, but what I'm trying to emphasize is that Umami was, by all stretches of the imagination, a hugely successful initiative. It came out of nowhere. Like, this was not.
And this is a community initiative. Yeah, this isn't
a community initiative. A bunch of people got together and they were like, "We can make this better," and we need kind of that same. Almost like Jeff Eaton back in the Snowman initiative. You remember, like, that's very old school. But, like, you know, I think we need someone thinking about this through that lens of, like, how are we going to help beginners be successful with Drupal? And getting all these modules in there out of the box is definitely a part of it. But, yeah, anyway, that's just my 2 cents. A million requests for this document in this chat. So I'm assuming you're posted somewhere.
So,
do you know if the chat is the chat recorded historically, or should
So
I?
what I've been told is that the chats are preserved up until Friday, and then all bets are off. So what I have been doing is, like, copying and pasting it into a Google Doc, which then is a perfect process. But.
All right, I'm going to try doing that now.
yeah, so if you save the link to this session now from your browser, then you can access the same link until the end of the conference, even though this particular content will not continue until the end of the conference, but the link will be live until the end of the conference. So if you save the URL to the session, you can come back here and save the chat.
I have the chat. I copied and pasted it, so I'll put it in the Google Doc once I have access.
Yeah, you need to scroll up though, because it's.
Oh yeah, I scrolled way up to.
Yeah.
Oh no, it didn't get. I scrolled back to an hour ago, and then it. Oh, what a pain!
I had to scroll all the way up and then copy and paste 20 or so at a time. It's not.
Yeah.
You can copy the whole thing. I've copied out the whole thing previously.
You just have to wait for the.
Yeah, load everything and then manually select everything. Yeah, it works.
Do I need to write another Chrome scraping extension for this conference?
Yes, do it.
Next year.
Session chat saver extension.
I have like 5 feature requests for these Hopin people or Hopin or whatever it is.
Hopin. Okay, so we are way well over time. So thanks everyone for coming. We covered a lot of content. So this is usually what happens in what we call hard problems conversations at DrupalCon. Not a very good marketing term, but that's what we use. And so you got to...
Key core discussions is the official name.
Yeah, now we call it that. Is it better marketing? Yes, key core discussions. So for those who were wondering how core is done, this is how we do it, with a bunch of discussions and getting on the same page and figuring out the process together. So I hope you can join the specific contributor tables groups for these initiatives. Automated Updates has a group, new front-end team has a group, Drupal 10 Readiness will soon have a group. I don't know if the JS menu component people created a group yet or not, but it would be nice. The contribution platform is contrib2020.getopensocial.net. That's where the contribution groups are happening. So see you there later at the conference, and especially on Friday.
Ruth asked, where would we look to see more? I think that the strategic initiatives page that Angie talked about earlier is the best entry point, because all of the initiatives will get added there, and that will include information like when they meet in Slack, what their Slack channel is, and so forth. Also check out the Open Social page if you're around on Friday. Or, well, I think it's active now too. Some of the initiatives are there, not all of them yet. Okay, sorry, good point.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you around at the conference.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.